Hello, everyone. I am Rosalind Brown of Your Wealth Guidance, where we provide Black women the tools so you can live life on your own terms through financial independence. Whoops, there we go. Got a little echo. And so today we have, and I always love these shows. These are like my favorite interviews because it's always great to have an example. And I always say sometimes we're like, yeah, they can do it. Yeah, they're different. But it's great to see women like us living that dream. And so today we have Arlene Lewis. She has made the decision to exit her role as medical director to enjoy time in the warmth and peace of Mexico as an expat. And so she is like 1 foot out the door. I'm super excited for her. She was born and raised in Virginia Beach, went to college at Virginia Tech and Hampton, and then med school at now VCU Medical School and residence at the University of Texas, Houston for OBGYN. She practiced for approximately 10 years and transitioned to non-clinical work in healthcare, which is where she is exiting to enjoy the freedom that comes with being an expat in Mexico. I'm super happy about this story. So I was like, hopefully y'all cheering for her too. Yay. Now, the first question is, what made you choose Mexico?
Well, I initially had actually been looking and thinking about Portugal. And because a friend of mine back in, I think, 2018 just sent me an article that was about, I think it was the golden visa and all of that. Because, we, considering the events of 2016, we were kind of talking about. So first time I never even thought about, I don't think I even occurred to me that you can do that. Like you can just go and, I know people do it. I just never thought how do you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And so I did go to Lisbon and Porto in 2019 and I really loved them. And I kind of been focusing on that. And then of course the pandemic happened. So nobody was going anywhere. And then I don't remember exactly, but it was probably just watching YouTube videos. And, as you're watching, say, Portugal ones, then Mexico ones start coming up. And so then I had just never thought about Mexico. I don't know why. I hadn't been there. And, then I started listening to people talk about it and seeing kind of the places they were showing and stuff. And I was like, oh, and then you'll be in similar time zones. And, so I started thinking about all that. And so then I went to Mexico last September and just really was like, oh my God, it's just so nice. I love it. And so, yeah, that's when so I still have gone kind of back and forth between the two, and I may do both eventually, but I thought, Mexico's temp residency is pretty straightforward and easy to do. So I thought, okay, do the easy one. and then if you decide you want to do the other one, then you can do the other one. So that's
now, how did you know it was time? So I know a lot of people are watching and they're just like you're watching a ton of videos. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna leave one day. Or, when do I know it's time? And I know sometimes it's just simply the fear. Yeah. How did you know, okay, this is my year, I'm ready? Especially since you were like looking at it in 2016.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
How did I know? Again, these things are sometimes kind of gradual, so it's hard to say for sure, but I think it was a mixture of, I had been not overly happy with my job and stuff. My practicing situation was kind of crazy. So that had left me with a very bad taste in my mouth about that. That stopped back in 2011. And then I started doing the non-clinical work similar to what I do now, but just with a different company. And it was okay for a good while, which was nice. It was probably only in the last maybe 3-4 years that I started to be like, I think I have a thing. I think a lot of people do. You get to about 10 years and you're kind of like, okay, this is getting a little old and, I'm not challenged. But then the situation where my shoulders really started to be a problem and I had calcifications on tendons and have to have injections. And it was just excruciating for a while. I was in tears, couldn't sleep at night. And a lot, and I would say a lot, if not all of it, is just from sitting on a computer all day And I admit I catch myself all the time with the shoulders are tensed up because something's happening or somebody's doing something that makes me so irritated. So I did finally take a leave of absence. Yeah. And I got that kind of at least under some control. But I think that was a big part of it. I had gone to Mexico for like an expat or like a relocation tour. Michelle Wedderburn, I don't know if you're familiar with her, San Miguel de Allende. She has a relocation tour. She has a YouTube channel too. And I had done that back in September. And so I was getting serious. But when this all came about in December, I think one thing it did was I had to take that. I took actually 6 weeks off, and it made me realize kind of how relatively inexpensively I can live without getting a paycheck, because there was no money coming in for 6 weeks. But I didn't spend that much. I was like, well, I can, live pretty good without spending as much as I would think. And then I think just also feeling how it felt to have an extended period of time not working it took about 2 weeks. Like, I think for sort of that stuff to kind of drift away. And after about 2 weeks, it was like, oh, like feel like a different person, and your brain starts to clear up. You can think about new possibilities and everything. So that was, I would say, when it was really like, okay, yeah, you're going to do this. And then I had, I work for a big corporation. So they, we get bonuses, we get stock, and the stock comes out April 1st. So I said, okay, you're going to make it till April 1st because we're not going to let go of any money, especially when we're not going to be working. And it seems so far off then, but of course now we passed that. And so, yeah, I just kind of, said, I'm going to just do it. I mean, just like, you're going to be scared. You're going to try to talk yourself out of it, but I think I would look back later if I didn't do it and be like, you should have done that when you had the chance. So.
Now, I think that's a good point. You said, you're going to be scared. You're going to have a million reasons to say, no, don't do this. Wait another year, those kind of things. How did you prevent yourself from saying, okay, no, one more year. Next year, 2024 is going to be the year?
I just think things had gotten to the point where I was like, I will probably burn down some bridges if I wait another year. So I better not do that. I want to leave on good terms just in case, I need to come back. So, and I think too, there were little individual moments, but that all added up. So like I started, and I don't think maybe I'd done it, but not that often, where I just looked at everything, all the money I had in different places, this 401k, this IRA, blah, 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 and started putting them all together on a spreadsheet to actually see. And when you see that, you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. I was like, more than I think. And I started doing that. So that helped. And one day I sat down and I did like, I think it's investor.gov, where you put in how much you have, and then, how many years you want it to calculate out, and what percentage rate, interest rates. And that really opened my eyes too. I was like, okay, if I can just do do some little things enough to just make enough to kind of pay my bills in the immediate time when I'm living in a much less expensive place, and not touch that, then I should be pretty good. And then eventually, hopefully, Social Security will also start coming in. So yeah, I said, you can you'll figure something out. I mean, I guess it's just like, I have some ideas on ways to make some money. So I can't imagine like none of that would work. I mean, it could be true, but I did kind of make sure, I said, even if you can't, make sure that there's a good chance it'll be okay, but it'll be even better if, and I don't want to not do anything. I don't think I would be able to just not do anything at all. So I'm okay. I'm good with that. I actually want to. So.
Now, this is a good question. Natasha says, where in Mexico are you heading? She's interested in relocating with her family, her husband, and 3 young kids. Wow. So, Natasha, that's a really good one. We actually have a show. I think, they had 2 young kids, and they moved to Mexico as well. I have to find the link and throw that in there, but that's in one of our past shows too. Where are you headed, Arlene?
San Miguel de Allende, in the middle. of Mexico is the place I'm going to start out. I don't know if that's where I'll stay, but that's where I'm going to start. That's where I went in September. And I chose that. Well, I mean, it's YouTube videos are going to factor a lot. I was watching them and I kind of was like, oh, that's so pretty and blah, 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 blah. I am starting to have a little bit of a feeling like, but I might want to be near a beach though. But that can always happen. But I do like and have generally said I liked the mountains, and the temperature there is like not really hot. I'm not really a big fan of real hot. And then when I went, it was beautiful and just nice and quaint. So I said, okay, that's where we'll start. So that's where I'm going.
Now, this is a good question that Tammy brings up. So Tammy says, what advice would you give to an overthinker? She keeps
I'm an overthinker right now.
Money. She needs medical. She doesn't want to be taxed in 2 countries. Girl, we talk about tax in different countries too. Go back there because she might, I don't know, she might even be still giving a 15-minute freebie. And so basically she's just saying she is overthinking it all and trying to figure out, all the what ifs. What kind of advice would you give to Tammy?
Yeah, I'm often called an overthinker by people, so I do understand that. Although I don't think I'm overthinking, I just think I'm normal thinking. But the best thing that has helped me was just starting to write stuff down. And honestly, I think was sometime around when you had asked me to do this, and we're talking about what was the thing that just made me say okay. Is that I had all these thoughts just flying around in my head. And one day I just sat down with my iPad and with the little to-do little app or whatever, said, you're going to just write down everything that comes in your head that you have to do to make this happen, and just let it just go. And I started putting each one down. And then as I saw them, then I started putting a date kind of on it. Like, okay, do this by this date, do this by this date. And when I did that, what had been tons of moving parts in my head that just seemed impossible to, like, this is never going to work. All of a sudden I'm looking and seeing, you'll be doing something this day, but there might be 3-4 days before you have to do anything else. It's like, this is not as bad as you think, when you actually start putting it down. So I think for me, it was the biggest thing was putting it down on paper in your device, whatever. And then the dating of it to really seemed to like open my eyes, like, oh, this isn't bad. And I'm going to tell you, when I was doing that, I literally felt an internal sense of, like, right after I did it, it was like, okay, we're good. Because I was all tense and upset inside all the time. Like, I'm going to die. But no, it was immediate. It's like, if I'd known that's all I had to do, I'd have just done that a long time ago.
Tammy brings up a good point. She talks about the need for medical. Now, you are a physician. You have been to medical school. So you are not, I have my teeth cleaned in a different country. Like, you really understand the difference
right.
between practicing medicine here in the States and then medical care in Mexico. How do you feel about the difference of the two?
In what way? In the cost, in the quality?
I think quality, because I think that's probably one of the big fears. People think, well, if I leave the States, what type of care will I get? Do they need to be prepared to keep flying back and forth for basic care? Especially your medical opinion.
Right. Well, I've used healthcare services in Portugal, not in Mexico, but everybody that I've been able to talk to has been like, it's as good or better in Mexico than it is in the United States. I've heard people say that, like, you go to a doctor's appointment in Mexico and it's like an hour long for like $30. You know what I mean? Again, this is all hearsay. I did my residency actually in Houston. So had people in my program that were from Mexico who were going to go back to Mexico and practice. So a lot of the Mexican doctors do their training in the US. So, I've heard nothing but good things. So I'm not at all worried about it. I mean, I don't know, I guess there could be some more serious things that could happen that you might need to get flown back or something. I don't know. But everything I've talked to, I've heard people talk about having their cancer treated in Mexico, and they've said nothing but good things. So I'm not at all worried about that.
Well, that's good, especially coming from you, because I
Yeah.
think
But again, I
that's
don't have
something
I haven't
to
used it yet. But yeah, having,
and we've had a few people that talked about that same where you actually see a doctor.
Mhm.
And Bernadette, she is in Merida, and she
Mhm.
talked about actually having her doctor's cell phone number. Like, you can't get a doctor on the phone. Like,
No.
I can't even call the office and get a doctor on the
Yeah.
phone.
I
You want the
know.
nurse to call you back.
And
That's the
spending
best.
that much time with you, and just costing that much. I mean, the copays sometimes cost more than what it costs to see that. I hear the dentists are really good. Everything. So yeah, I'm not really worried at all about that. In fact, there's some things that I didn't do now because I'm like, I'm gonna do them when I get there. So it'll cost a lot less. So yeah, I could change my mind if once I actually use something, but from everything I've been able to glean, it sounds like it's as good or better.
So that's good.
So
And
yeah.
then I know we were talking because Tammy brought up 2 points. It's usually the medical and the money.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, I know when we were talking before, you said you really got serious to put everything on paper about a
Mhm.
year ago.
Mhm.
And so not 10 years of planning, but not
No.
2 weeks of planning. And so in that year, what was your process?
About a year ago was when, and again, I'm embarrassed to say this, that I really started focusing on my money. Like, it actually started because I was fortunate. I had gotten enough in my savings account that I felt like this was too much in my savings account. So, because before that, I had like the IRAs and 401ks, but I didn't have just like an individual brokerage account. So at that point, I said, okay, take some of this and do that. So I put that into one of the brokerages, and I had someone that was doing the managing for me for about a month. And I was watching, that made me start paying attention. And once I started really paying attention and learning and realizing that this was kind of interesting, and also seeing what they were doing, and I'm like, they were buying and selling all this stuff. I was like, my taxes, y'all, my taxes. I can't keep doing that. And I probably was worried I made the guy mad, but after about a month, I just said, I'm gonna just take this over myself and start doing what I want to do, and I love it. Actually, I'm playing with trying out options, but I'm trying to stop myself so that I won't. If I do, I'll have to set aside just a little bit of money over here and don't go crazy. But yeah, I wish I'd known that I had this kind of interest. But I think it's because it couldn't have happened a long time ago because we didn't have, these apps that you can go on or sites you can go on and manage your own money so easily. I remember back in my 20s, and I think it was, well, I shouldn't call any brokerage out, but I called one of the big brokerages because I was interested in, getting some money into something. And first of all, the sound of the way they talked to me was just kind of, you could tell he was just like, whatever. And then, you had to have $3,000 to even start and all this other stuff. And that probably just threw me off of doing it for the longest time. But now we just have, you can put $5 inside if you want to. And now, I mean, okay, I hope my job doesn't see this. I'll be working and have like Yahoo Finance on the TV, watching all this stuff. And in between, I'm checking stuff, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to me now. So that was kind of it.
And definitely the access to information,
Mhm.
the calculators and so forth too. And
I mean, and figuring out who to listen to and who not to. But I mean, I really make myself, if I do have some individual stocks now. Never did. My very first individual stock I bought in July of last year. I've got a few now, but I've got a lot of just ETF. Most of the money's just in like ETFs and some in like CDs and other stuff. But a few individual stocks, and when I watch, everyone says don't go and look at it every day, but I go and look at every day because I think this is the way I learn. I said, I want to go like in the beginning, I'd have something and it started to drop and I'm freaking out. But then as I kept watching it, I'm like, okay, then tomorrow it's back up. And then the next day it's back there here. And then tomorrow's back up. And that kind of let me learn the ebb and flow of kind of the stock market, if that makes sense. So I go on there and I just look at it. And if I see anything dropping, I know, go look around and see if you can find out what's going on with this company that's making them drop or that's making them go up. And then you start just learning. And yeah, I mean, I hope I, don't become a victim of not knowing what I don't know. doing something crazy. But I think I'm pretty conservative, and I am starting to look into getting a fee only financial advisor, just to sort of just look over everything, not manage it, because again, I want to do that, but to just sort of look at it and just make sure I'm not missing any big blaring, things, and just kind of watching like I shouldn't say it this way, but just some of the things I bought, at least for now, have already just really made a lot of gains.
Mm-hmm.
And just being like, if I'd been doing this back in whenever,
Caught up in that, you're like,
why? But it's okay. Better late than never. So, and then so there was that's kind of where the year ago sort of started. And I don't think I'd made a clear-cut decision at that point. I still had it up here kind of as an idea. And then just I don't remember exactly, but somewhere along the way, I decided to go to that relocation tour in San Miguel. It was all the whole time watching probably YouTube videos. That's all I do is watching. And another big thing that has helped me too is I've really started to embrace minimalism, which I've not normally been an overly consumer. I know people that buy way more than I do, but I did what we tend to all do. I would have periods where there was an Amazon box at my door every day and all that. And so I just started to do like the 30-day, the thing where you do the get rid of one thing on the first day, 2 things on the second day. And I did that, and that felt good. And I've been getting rid of things over the years, but it really hit, and now I've gotten pretty good at it. I can just not, I might sometimes worry about getting rid of too much, but I go for like, empty tabletops and everything. And I look around, it's like, oh my God, I feel so, peaceful without stuff everywhere. And everything I look at now is like little decorative stuff. Usually I try to even make it have more than one use. Like it's decorative, but it also does something, but also it has a meaning. I got that in India, or I got that in whatever, and not just stuff you went and bought wherever,
Another trinket.
And then you save money. So, I'm not spending all that money buying stuff. My biggest problem is food. I shouldn't, like DoorDash. I do occasionally.
Everybody has their thing.
That's what I got to get under control. But other than that, and so so that's really been helpful too. And that kind of all started coming about around the same, pretty much like really getting into it around the last year as well. So a lot of changes in the last year.
And how did you know what your number was? I know, especially in the farm community, people have, the multiples and so forth. How did you know, okay, this is my number, I'm there?
Once I started looking at both Portugal and Mexico and kind of seeing around what people were kind of saying you could live on a month. So I used what I thought would be a good amount based on that. Looking at places to rent and all that and seeing if it seemed reasonable. And also I talked to a realtor. I was in Querétaro too. I went there as well as San Miguel, which is right like an hour away. And I went around with a realtor who was really great and, was running some numbers by him. He goes, yeah, that sounds like, yeah, you'll be fine. So once I had that, again, just YouTube videos with people talking about, the 4% rule and all of that stuff. And so I, figured that out. And I actually made a vision board, but it's like on my computer. So I made my computer wallpaper be just vision board. And so I actually had the number. So I had the number there. Like, this is the number that is like the low limit of what, if you have this, you can do it. And I don't know what exactly happened, but I was close to it when I did that. And in the last year, and maybe it was, like I said, waiting to get that stock and to get another bonus and all that, that it's about right there. Well, I'm selling my house, and I've been very lucky that my house has appreciated quite a bit. So with that money that I'll put into some, whatever I decide to put it into, that definitely pushed me over, like well above the number. So I'm not to say I'm not scared. I'm still scared. Like, what if something happens and you end up under the number? But yeah, that really helped. So.
And then KB, I guess this is a really good kind of segue to KB's question. She says, is real estate a part of your portfolio? I guess part of it is the sale of your house. Is part of it.
It's not. And my house, because I have a ridiculous mortgage, and So if I were going to rent my house, I would have to get it rented at the place at the amount that I could rent it at. I might not. I would probably cover the mortgage, but like I'd have to have a property manager, and then paying them. It would just wouldn't make sense. I'd be putting in a little bit every month, and I was like, that I don't want to do that. And I just, for me personally, being somewhere else, I just don't want. I just don't want the trouble right now. I don't want to have to worry about when the heater breaks down or when the whatever. I rented a house that I used to have. This is my third house. So I rented the first one, and it was fine. But I just didn't want to do that. But I think I have it a little bit in my head, like maybe like if I go where I'm going and I like it, maybe taking a piece of that and buying something and having that to be an investment property. I can't say it won't happen, but right now it's not there. So just because I want to be free. I'm trying to be free as possible. I just like
I mean, that's a mindset thing too, because so many people are going to approach this a number of different ways. And some people are like, I'm selling everything and I'm leaving with a suitcase. And some people are leaving their home, but they're keeping it and they're going to rent it. Or I know we spoke to someone a few weeks back, and she keeps her house in the UK and goes back during the summer. And so, it's really kind of painting your own picture of what's going to work best for you. And so I know you've already done minimalism, so you've gotten rid of a whole bunch of stuff, so you don't have like all the trinkets and stuff. But what are you planning in terms of the move? Are you planning to like take a whole 18-wheeler or
not a whole 18-wheeler? I have some pieces I want to take, but there's a lot I don't want to take. And I have definitely, I do some things that are kind of weird. So like I sort of played around with like sitting on the floor, like floor couches and stuff. I didn't do that 100%, but I do it somewhat. So like I work on the floor, like I have a little floor desk and everything. So a lot of my stuff is like cushions and that kind of thing. I even have either consciously or subconsciously for a few years been setting my life up to be more mobile. Like my bed frame is one that goes together with Japanese joinery that you need no tools at all. You can just take it apart and put it yourself. So it's like I'm wanting to move towards things that if I wanted to, I could just take it apart, stick it in a truck myself, without anybody's help, and move if I felt like it. I do have one humongous, beautiful Indian armoire that I do think I want to take, but I'm still kind of like, if you get past taking that, you'd be well off. But no, the guy I talked to, that's the mover though, from what I told him, he said it's not that much, it shouldn't be that much. But I don't want to get rid of everything. I have things that I like, but I also am open to the idea that over time that may happen. If I go there and then I was like, well, I want to go somewhere else when I'm tired of this stuff. It could be that I just start shedding stuff. But I also have a cat and I'm not getting rid of her. So she puts a little bit of restrictions on me, but she's mobile. She's just going to have to come.
I think that's a really good point too, because when we met weeks back, it was a bunch of us talking about our pets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It's not as easy, who was it that talked about? Natasha talked about her kids. Kids fly a lot easier than pets.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can get them in a country a little bit easier, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so what type of preparation have you had to do, or how have you incorporated your cat into your overall move plans?
Well, like I told you, I'm looking at driving. I could fly her. She's a little bit chunky. And when I was at the vet with her, we put her in the carrier and put her on the scale, and she's right at the 20-pound thing.
No more tree.
That's what's been happening. I think she's been mad about it too. But she has started to lose some weight. She was actually heavier than that. She was down some then. I feel so ashamed to say that. But and we actually just took off the shoulder strap and it put her under the weight. I mean, that's how close we were. So that sort of makes me think too, like the last thing I want to do is get to the airport ready to go. And they put her on a scale and say, ma'am, we're sorry, she can't go, So the more things have happened. And as I found out about like the guy that I told you about, that the mover told me about, and I kind of trust him not to just give me some crazy person that will come meet you and take your pet and driving. And I do like to drive. So it's pretty much you get, I would drive from here to Texas, and then my sister's in Texas. So I called her and I said, would you be willing to drive with me from Houston to the border, and she got excited. I was like, oh, it's gonna be fun, yay! So that's the plan as of right now. And the cat will be, I weighed like, okay, the plane trip, that's hours and hours with her in the carrier, but it's one day you're done, versus a car trip where it's going to be extended. I just feel like I could manage her better in a car, where I can have her out of the carrier. If something happens, we have a way to pull over and deal with it, versus on the plane. If she freaks out, I'm on the plane, what am I gonna do? So I kind of, and I like seeing the scenery. I kind of like something about, if you're going somewhere new and actually seeing where you're going, you know what I mean? Like, instead of just flying over everything and landing there and not really having a sense of place where you are, I kind of like knowing where I am. And I was a little worried, the whole Mexico and cartels and stuff. I'm like, I don't know about driving through Mexico. But when the guy told me about this guy, and I went and checked him out, and that obviously he's a Mexican man who has this as a business and knows where to go. Like, he knows the places to go, not to go. I said, okay, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable. And I'm watching all these other people that done it, and I'm like, they're all alive. Nothing has happened to them.
Which is a really good point, especially I know people are watching this. They're like, girl, don't drive, because the people were from South Carolina. And it's like, like,
that's why I would not drive by myself. And I had talked to some people who did, like, I don't think I'm gonna do that. But once I found about him, and I'm like, okay, now that's something that I could do, because he's driving like in the Mexican part. I'm driving in the US part. And, he's the one driving and knowing where to go and knowing where not to go. And when I go on his site, I mean, he has so many just pictures and reviews from people that, like, tons and tons and tons. And I didn't see one bad thing, I don't think, except for return my message. That's the only thing could you return my messages? So,
now, how did you find him? Was he?
That was through the mover.
Okay.
And I found the mover, of course, on YouTube. He was being interviewed by another, I don't even know the guy's channel, but he was being interviewed, and he and his wife had come from, I think, somewhere out west 4 years ago, went traveling throughout Mexico. They drove their camper or something like that, van or something, to see where they wanted to be, ended up in Lake Chapala, and through their process of moving stuff. Yeah. And they realized, this could be done much better. So they actually opened their own moving company. And I saw him, and I liked how he sounded about things. And the first time he called me, he talked to me for like a whole hour, asking me questions, and I felt really, really comfortable. And then, I was asking him about the cat thing, and do you know anybody that I could talk to? And then he said, well, you should, contact so-and-so, there's company or people that do that, for a living, like that's their company, is taking people with their pets. I was like, oh, really? Okay. And then when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that looks good.
Are there any special, like, vaccinations or paperwork you'll need to bring your cat over the border?
Yeah, that's been a little bit of a thing. So according to their website, both the USDA and the Mexican immigration website, it says for US citizens and Canada, you no longer have to have a health certificate. But the people that I've also hired some people to help me when I get there with the immigration part. So I don't have to go like be in line forever. And they sent me information, and they left that all out. So it looked like you had to do, like, they have to see them within 15 days, blah, 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 have a certificate. Everything from people I've talked to, you don't need that from the US, but I'm going to have a rabies, thing with me. And then I am going to get her vet just to make like on letterhead or something, just to say she's healthy, blah, blah, just so I have something. And that's what my friend that did. And she said it was fine. And they say that I think it's just rabies. I didn't even see anything about any of the other stuff that you get vaccines for. And then they mention ectoparasites a lot, which I'm assuming they mean ticks and fleas. They like inspect them, but everybody I said they don't inspect them. They glance and say, "Oh, you got a cat." It's like, fine.
Like, it's the cat scratching themselves a lot.
Okay. Yeah, and I say, we see ticks, we'll have to take samples and everything. And I'm like, and it did say if they have to do that, they have to hold your pet. I said, no, that's not happening. If you find anything on her, which she doesn't, I'm a treater and everything too, but I will turn right around with her. And this is when I was going to fly. I said, we'll just get another chicken, fly her on back. No, we're not holding anybody anywhere. But I did also hear, this is another plus for the driving, that going across land, to the border is like really easy. Like they barely even check. So I said, okay, that's another plus for not flying and driving. So
And then you've hired someone to help you with the paperwork portion. So in terms of like your visa, you already have your visa. What type
Yeah.
of visa and what type of assistance did you get to get those things lined up?
So the first part I'm going for temporary. The first part I just did here I'm in DC. So I went, someone told me about needing to go on the third Monday of every month is when they open up all the appointments. And I did it back in January. I wasn't intending to do it then, but I just happened to get on there to see what it looked like and see how fast appointments went. And they started disappearing. I was like, oh, wow, this really, and then something just really quick just said, okay, you got 6 months. That'll be July. You can get you get your stock in April. I just did this real quick little calculation. I said, I'm going to put this in here and just see what happens. And I got the appointment. So I just went ahead and did it. So I've got till July 12th to go, but I should be fine. And that was it. I mean, this end was easy. And, people acted like it was hard. It's like, that was really easy. And I went and the people were very nice. You take all your financial stuff and show them that you can support yourself. And then on the other end, though, I wanted some help. So I found, I think you're going to be like, this woman is always on YouTube, but another YouTube with a guy that I had someone in San Miguel told me about. I didn't really like, it communicated with her and just didn't feel real comfortable. But I saw this guy and I liked what I was hearing him say a lot more. So I contacted them and then I liked it. She would kind of give me like 1 and 2 word answers. They would get really in depth. I was like, okay, this is what I need. I need to know
all the details.
And so I think what they do, and I just got them like 3-4 days ago, so I haven't had a whole lot of interaction with them, but they've changed the process now since at least last September, where now there's no appointments anymore. There used to be. Now you just go, and I think you're like standing in line. So what they do is they get someone to stand in line for you, and then when it gets closer, then you can come. So you're not going to be standing there for hours. That's one thing they do. They make sure you have everything. They're like, we get people to fill all their stuff out beforehand. You send me your passport, all that stuff. So they just sort of make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And that I like that.
The first appointment, you needed your financial information. So they know you're not just coming over here with nothing. And so in terms of the financial portion, is there a certain amount that they're looking for?
There is, but I don't remember the exact numbers. There was you can either have, in your investment accounts, now I think if you're like actually of retirement age, then things like Social Security and your investment accounts, you can use those. I took both. I took both my brokerage and my savings account information, and I don't even remember it. Like, it was back in January. I don't remember which one she used, but she just picked the one that had the most money in it and just said, we're just going to use this one. And it was like, I think 12 months. I'm sorry, I'm not real clear on the specifics. It was 12 months or 6 months of it. And they wanted you to print out, the whole thing. So I had a big old stack of, my statements. And then you have your passport. And I think, there were forms on their website that you fill out, and I had all that stuff with me. And then they do what they call an interview. Really, was just a lady talking to me, like, so what you do? Can you speak Spanish? Blah, 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 all that stuff. And it was more like a conversation than an interview. And then that was pretty much it. It went really well, really easy. I was nervous, but it was okay.
And Not Before 10 says you are so lucky she can't get an appointment. You got to tell her how you were able to get an appointment.
You got to be on. Well, I guess it depends on where you are, because I know each consulate's very different. I understand. even how much money you have to show you have is different per consulate. But when the lady told me you have to be on there at 10 o'clock in the morning on the third Monday of the month, and I was on there, and sure enough, all these, like literally there was 9:59, there was nothing. 10 o'clock. All these appointments came up for the next month. And then I just put the information in there to see if it would go through. And actually the first one I did not go through. So someone had already grabbed it that fast, because she told me you got to be on there because they will go fast. But it wasn't so fast that I couldn't pick one. Then I did the next one, put my, type my stuff in really quick and hit send. And all of a sudden you've got an appointment. I was like, oh my God, I got an appointment. that starts to be those little teeny things that start to make it real, like, oh no, I have an appointment at the consulate. Okay. And it was no problem at all. It may be harder in other places, though, I can't say. But if you go on whatever consulate you would want to go to on their website, will tell you.
She said she's in Chicago, so that
girl,
girl, come on over to DC.
Yeah, DC did good. I was happy. I hear McAllen, Texas is like the easiest one.
Oh,
and
wow.
they have less of an income requirement and all that stuff. But I had no problem at all in DC. So yeah, I did it during my leave of absence. So while I had a lot of time, I was like, okay, yeah. So,
and what has been the hardest part of this process so far?
Just managing my fear, really. Nothing that I've had to do has been hard. Actually doing it. It's been working through the anxiety of it, the what are you doing? The, oh my gosh, I'm changing my mind. No, I'm not going to do it today. Yes, I am going to do it tomorrow. Going through all of that has been the hardest. And it's still there. I mean, it's still there because it's juggling quitting your job, leaving your country, and selling your house all at once. It's like any of those things are hard, and trying to do them all at the same time. But still, that's probably been the worst because no one thing has been difficult.
What was the point of no return? Is it I quit my job, so now I can't change my mind? Or
yeah. Okay. But even that, though, I tell myself, and sometimes when I get little scared moments, I'm like, you don't have to go. I mean, you can. When one of the mental processes, months ago was worst case scenario. What if you didn't leave and you stayed in this house? Do you have enough? How long can you live? With just the savings, not even not getting into the, other stuff. I was like, I think worst case scenario. I mean, my brokerage account would be gone, my individual and my savings, but 2 years. It's like, so you could stay exactly where you are for 2 years and be okay. So once I realized that, then I'm like, okay, that then that's not, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I don't see myself not working and just sitting here. I don't really like where I live. That's the other thing. It's okay, but I don't have any real attachment to staying here. So it's like, why live in this expensive place? But yeah, that the quitting the job though, that was the first like irrevocable thing I did.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point because we interviewed Royal last week and she's in Colombia and she really talked about the difference in having community. And I think that could be one of the fears of why people don't leave because they're like, my mom and them here and I don't want to be too far away from my family and so forth. How has it been kind of creating a community or finding people where you're going opposed to kind of being stuck where you are today?
I think the biggest part of that was doing that relocation tour, because when I went there and then you're automatically meeting people because like you meet her, the person that did it, but then there's stuff that involves other people that live there. They weren't all Black women, but mostly, but other people too. I feel like I know more people there that I could pick up the phone and call than I do where I am. Because I don't have a ton of close friends where I am. So I always like, this person's over here in Chicago, this person's over here, whatever, in Atlanta. But I know more people there in one place now than I do where I am. I do have a brother here, but he'll be all right. And then both my parents are deceased, so I don't have any parents to be. And like I said, my sister's in Texas, so yeah, that is a big draw. In fact, I'm always kind of thinking about the next thing, or like, you sure want to do that? Maybe you could go over here, maybe go there, and that could happen. And Portugal's still on my possibilities list for at some point. But I said to start out, yeah, go where you have already started to develop some community, and that's huge. And so that's in San Miguel. So I was like, okay, we'll go there and then just see what happens.
And you talked about like the starting process of, okay, I'm about to go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make these changes. Mm-hmm. Has there been anyone along the way to say, girl, don't do that?
Of course. Yes. Yes. No, I wouldn't say they do. They don't go that far. They don't say don't do it, but they kind of look at you a little bit like, you what? Did you do what? Well, how do you know? But do you speak Spanish? Well, do you blah 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 blah? And I'm trying to think. Have I had I don't think I've had anybody just said don't, they say don't do it. But yeah, I've had some people say you're brave. In fact, I would say I've had more encouragement than anything. And when I quit my job, when I turned in the resignation, a few of my friends, when I let them know, they were like, "You're going to inspire so many people. You're going to blah, 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 blah." And I was shocked. I was like, "I am?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I'm not thinking I'm going to inspire anybody." But they were like, "No." She's like, "This is great. And people, can see that you can do it." And da, 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 da. And so I was like, oh. So yeah, I've gotten more positive reinforcement than anything.
And I think, and we were talking about this before we started tonight, is there are so many examples of people who don't look like us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when we see, we're like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
We know our grandparents, we know our aunts and uncles,
Mm-hmm.
they worked until they just physically couldn't work anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but never really a lot of visions of people just kind of living a full type life.
Yeah, I don't think I know of anybody from, and my mother passed away in 1995, and she worked for my father, so it wasn't like she had to go into some corporate job or something every day, but she worked till June and died in August.
Oh my goodness.
So, I'm like, she didn't have a chance to do any, whatever. I hope, pray to God that won't be, I won't be me, but because I'm younger than what she was when she died, but you think about all those things, you're like, we don't know. And do I really want, and I did, people talk about like, think back when, think up to when you're like 80. And what do you want to think when you look back on your life now? Do you want to think, oh, I moved to Mexico? Or do you want to think I sat there and continued to do the same old thing and be miserable? And I'm like, no, I don't want to think that. I want to think I moved to Mexico. So
yeah, I mean, it's the stories and the adventure and enjoying it while you can. And especially because you resign, but you said you may just take a few years off and then you might want to do something else.
Or
And
not even that long. I mean, I may just take a month or I don't know how long I could actually sit around and not do anything. So I probably will try to do a month, but it may not even last that long. I mean, I'm sure as soon as this job, like Friday's my last day, so I'll actually have the breathing room. I'm sure I'm gonna be on the computer right away looking at, websites for like freelance stuff. But I want to do, like I was an English major and I didn't decide to go to medical school too much. Like I wasn't like, oh, I wanted to be a doctor since I was 2. That wasn't me. And I wanted to write really. And I was like, now's your chance to do some freelance writing and do some other things you just might want to do without having to have so much pressure on making enough money to pay for your mortgage or, put money in a retirement and all that stuff. Now's the chance. But still, if I can do those things and make a little money, that'll be good too. So
it's such a good point because so many times you're going to school, you're staying in a job because of the money it makes.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about, living on your own, because maybe you wanted to play an instrument, but your parents were like, no, you better go be an engineer because you got bills to pay.
Right. Exactly.
And then, eventually you have responsibilities, you have a mortgage, you have children or whatever that might be. So you don't have a choice and you're kind of stuck.
Right.
And, people are like, I could do this that doesn't make as much money, but it fills my heart or I make money. And sometimes it's money rules out because you got all these obligations.
You got all this other stuff. And plus in the country we're in, you have to plan for your own retirement. There's not going to be, pensions and other stuff. And will Social Security be here? I hope so, but we don't know, so, you kind of have to focus on all of that stuff. But, now it's like, now's your chance. And honestly, I don't even really know. It's sort of like rediscovering yourself. It's like, I'm going to just need time to be able to say, I kind of never remember what I really like to do, but I need to rediscover the things that I truly like to do. Don't you dare. My cat's here. He's like, looking at me like I'm going to jump out there. But yeah, my story about becoming a doctor is way too long and crazy, but it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I just wanted to be a, I got into it. I liked medical school, but I never really loved practicing and stuff. I do what I do now. It's okay, but I'm not like, oh, this is the best thing ever that I ever wanted to do. I do like more of like lifestyle medicine type of stuff. I became vegan myself a couple years ago, totally changed my life. And so I've been, I'm very passionate about talking about it, not to try to push people, but I've had a few people change and be like, I wish I'd known about this my whole life. I was like, me too, me too. I was like, I didn't know, and looking at what we can do in our lifestyle to be healthier. So one of the things I'm thinking about is starting to look into that and like, what can I do with that? Maybe writing, maybe I'll have a YouTube channel as much as I'm on YouTube. I should try to do it. There's that. I want to write. I want to do, all these other things. And so we'll see, I don't know.
Can we say yay to vegan? That reminds me, I got some tofu in the refrigerator.
And I actually don't like to use I like to say whole food plant-based because you can be a very unhealthy vegan. So it's very much about,
But DC, it is the best place to be.
They have so much, and I've strayed. I need to get myself back on the whole food part. I'm going to too many places. But when you first start, though, you kind of want to taste things. So you taste all this neat stuff that's out there that isn't really whole food necessarily in the current form it is in. But you're like, wow, this is good. Oh my God. So you got to I'm going to pull myself back into like, the best thing is cooking. Cooking for yourself, but I'll have more time to do that too. It's all of that stuff. So, there's other things. I have a lot of interests. I don't know necessarily in my mind always how to make money with those interests, but I'm trying new things. So we'll see what happens.
When you share what you know and what you do, people will come to you and say, can you teach me?
Mm-hmm.
And someone, so not before 10, she says, give yourself time you need. She said it took her 6 months before she said, it was enough. And I know I took a month off and I was like, this was barely enough. Like,
right.
I started to feel good. And it was like, damn it.
I felt 2 weeks into my leave of absence is when I started feeling that, okay, like you kind of like
that addiction to productivity.
All that stuff has come out of you. Yeah.
Clean this, put this up, organize.
Yeah, you started to like your mind started to clear up and be like, okay, there's now let me look around me, and I'm assuming that's going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but overall, I'm excited. I don't know what's going to happen, and I think I have to trust myself to be able to figure things out, and I have done it in the past. So I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at rolling with the punches and trying to figure it. I mean, now I will get stressed out sometimes when something happens unexpected and I'm like, but then I pull myself together and figure out how to do it and find resources and find people that know, we're in a position now where we have more information that we can get to at our fingertips than we've ever had. So I'm like, you'll figure it out, and don't spend all your money at once, that that's the big part. You need that cushion of money under you
to at least make that move. And this is a good question. What's the vegan scene in San Miguel?
It was they do have vegan restaurants. There's a couple that were really good. There was also a little vegan grocery store. So if like you want to get the things that are more like the Beyond Meats, which I don't necessarily, that's why I shouldn't be eating, but and tofu, and then a bunch of other much more like the grains and all that stuff. They have that stuff anyway, but and then of course like you go into the little markets and you've got all the fruits and all the vegetables and all the stuff that's just so fresh there, so there'll be like no end to all of that. So it's there, and I'm sure it's there even more than what I knew, with kind of going with people that were in a group. So I did a little bit of exploring. I did find a little more in Querétaro, but Querétaro is a bigger city, and that's about an hour away, and it had a lot too. But if I need to go there too, I can get whatever. So it's definitely there. So yeah, it was good.
I love it. And I know we have just a few more minutes left. I think one of the big things is that kind of fear. And so, what would you say for people who are like you? They're watching a ton of YouTube videos. One day, I'm going to be like her. Like one day.
I don't know if I have the answer because I still have fear. It's not gone. It is definitely that you feel the fear and do it anyway kind of thing. I mean, I do whatever I need to do for me, which is, if it's talking to my poor friends and family, they're probably tired of hearing about it, but they've been very nice. They will talk to me when I freak out. And just, I don't know. In the end of the day, when you check everything, certainly seeing that, yeah, I've got enough money where I shouldn't go homeless helps. I've got my break. This is my break glass idea or, plan is if things just are terrible, you're spending more money than you need, stop before when you still have enough to buy a tiny house. That's and then live in your tiny house and, then you'll need a lot less money. Like at least you'll have a place to live. So, and that, that should take a while unless something happens terrible. So, thinking, I guess that in general is just think of your contingency plan. Like, what do you do if the worst things happen? And then it becomes just doing it through the fear. Unfortunately, I was looking for some way to make there be no fear. I haven't found that yet. So at some point I had to decide, I just refuse to continue to feel like I feel now and continue to do what I'm doing. And so I'm like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? You gotta do something, and you're gonna just have to be afraid. That's really,
and I think it's
nice bottles of wine occasionally. No.
But not for people to know that there are people out here doing it afraid.
Yeah,
and I think
I'm not without fear, believe me. No.
Because sometimes, we see people and they're like, I sold everything I got. We leaving tomorrow. And they're like, how?
Yeah. And we all have a different threshold for that, right? So, you got to go with your own threshold for dismantling things. And I'm not sure haven't gone too far yet. Once we put my house on the market, that's going to be like, oh my God, what am I doing? Because I've never done that. I've never left a job without a new job, another job, and since I was very, very young, and I've not gotten rid of when I only had 3 houses, but the second and the first and the second, I had another house. You know what I mean? Like I was going out and looking, and I had another house to go to. So I haven't rented in a long time. So this is all going to be very new. But I do want to try to don't just go down there and buy something down there. Like, give
don't
yourself
do what's
time.
normal. Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is with what I just get from this house, there are houses there that I could buy. Versus here, no, I couldn't just.
There's no.
Yeah, this is not gonna happen.
Yeah, I know DC is crazy.
So when you start thinking about, and a lot of this is almost hard to believe. I think that's for me too. Even though I was there, even though I saw it, I go and look at the listings. I see all this stuff. I look at everything. It's just hard to believe that. I don't think I'm one of those people that believes all the propaganda that the U.S. throws out there about everywhere. But still, you can't help but absorb some of that. So it is hard to believe that there are places that run so differently that you don't have to just work yourself to the bone just to, exist. And they're there. They're just out there. So you got to.
That goes back to what Not Before 10 said, is taking that time to, you got to retrain your brain from what we're so used to here.
Yeah. And I think I am excited about the things that are going to start to happen internally. I think, once I let go of all this stuff, I don't think I can even imagine what it's going to be. I don't know, but I think it's going to be something pretty good. It'll be pretty cool. So
I'm excited. Tammy says, congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you.
You have to update us once you're there. So you definitely got to update us once you're there. We want to hear about the road trip. We want to see the pictures. See how the cat made it.
Oh Lord, Disney, don't even talk about it. No,
all the details.
Absolutely.
And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the step, for showing us, to move in fear and still continue to take that next step.
And I'm sorry, I realized I got so dark. The sun's going down. I haven't got lights on. I'm sorry. That look crazy. No, you're welcome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk. So that's
I
good.
appreciate you. And so I hope you all join us for the next Money Monday. Please be sure to hit the subscribe and turn on notifications button so you don't miss another Money Monday. Because one day we're going to be coming back like, Arlene, tell us, girl, you down there, tell us how it's going. And so until then, have a wonderful night, everybody.
Bye.